So for those of us who are listening to the JOD Pod and don't know who Lucy Werner is, who are you? Have you got any thoughts around how you build up from a standing start? Did you always wanted to be an entrepreneur? Did you always wanted to step out and kind of run your own show?
No.
Lucy, I've got a boring question that I've written down here that I want to ask you though. How did you get your first customer? Welcome to the JOD Pod, a micro podcast where we interview CEOs, entrepreneurs, founders, authors and coaches. Today we are joined by Lucy Werner, the founder of Hype Yourself. Lucy, great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So for those of us who are listening to the JOD Pod and don't know who Lucy Werner is, who are you?
So I would say, very top line, I'm a PR expert. I've worked in publicity for 17 years, been in-house at some of London's top agencies, set up my own agency in 2014 called the Wern to try and bring big, affordable agency thinking to small businesses and entrepreneurs. I've now split that business out into two. So my main focus at the moment is Hype Yourself, which is a DIY, PR and branding platform for small business owners, because I think there's just so much that they can learn to do for themselves. So it's all about kind of giving them manageable ways to learn to do that so they can apply it.
That's wonderful. I think, for anybody that's listening to this looking to start their own business, I find this from a marketing perspective is that so many people build stuff and then expect people to turn up and buy the stuff that they've built, be it product, like SaaS product or a wig emporium or I don't know why I came up with that, or a product on Etsy, but actually having some, messaging, some PR around what you're building, it's not half the battle, it's kind of 90% of the battle.
Yeah, everything has to start with a story. It's something that me and my partner, Adrian Chatelet, would say. He's my creative director, but also co-founder of my children. So we work together in the business. I'm the founder.
You set me up so well for that. That's brilliant. Co-founder of my children. Okay,
yeah, it really, whether you're talking about brand, PR, marketing, anything to do with getting yourself out there, it really does start with your story. And I think a lot of people think it's about sharing the benefits of their product or service, but actually it's that human connection. No idea is really original as much as any entrepreneur thinks that it is. But what is original is your own thumbprint and your own personality. And I think that's how we can differentiate ourselves, and that's what makes our audience connect with us. So where you can, share your story. Stop selling, start sharing.
And do you advocate, one-to-one to get you going, and then you talk to one-to-many, or have you got any thoughts around how you build up from a standing start?
I think podcasts are actually a great way to start because you are actually talking one-to-one. So, for example, doing this podcast is great for people who are starting out because it is really only one-to-one and it's, not recorded live. It can be edited. So if you make a big whoopsie, it can be corrected later. But then it goes out to so many. And one of the reasons I think podcasts work so beautifully for business owners is because we consume them in a very personal way. So we might be having a run in the car, in the bath, cooking our dinner. So you kind of get a much richer connection with them than perhaps if they're just reading a quick little box out from you in a press article. I think people always focus on mainstream media and think that's going to solve all their sales problems. But actually, it very rarely translates into overnight sales. PR is really a bit of a brand building piece. It's a billboard for your work. Whereas when people can hear you and connect with you, that I think actually resonates a lot more. And if you're doing it, it's much better to do it in a smaller niche podcast that has the right audience for you than to be on a big publication that really none of your audience matches sat there.
And it's quite a common term in marketing parlance at the moment, but talking about being real and authentic.
Yeah.
I think if people step away from, the message that's written down in front of them and actually just interact and talk as they are, sometimes, you'll build a better connection with people because you can't always just read a script when you're talking to people. And actually how you talk normally is your brand. It's what you're about.
Definitely. And if you're a founder, whether it's you as a solopreneur or you've got a big team, if you're the founder, it's your personality, it's your leadership that's driving the business. It's not going to be making money and sales that they care about is you. They're working for you. So if you can bring your personality and your ethos through, not just externally but internally, it can be so powerful.
I love that. It's brilliant. When did you obviously you used to work at some big agencies, but like.
So I worked at W Communications, which is a big one.
Yeah.
Eulogy. My first ever PR job, I was 17. I did music PR work experience placement. And I did it for a fortnight.
Wow.
And I ended up staying all summer. I was just like, this is the coolest job ever. And I'm really good at it. But, and I also used to do PR for Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the boutique travel guide. I've also worked at like Leo Burnett, which is a big global ad agency. To just give an indication of how old I am, I used to send out show reels on VHS tapes.
What's VHS? So you worked at these big agencies doing some really cool stuff. Did you always wanted to be an entrepreneur? Did you always wanted to step out and kind of run your own show?
No. I don't know what that... there wasn't that light bulb moment for me, in the sense there was a light bulb moment for me in who I wanted to serve the audience. Like I wanted to actually provide affordable PR. Most PR agencies, you're looking at a minimum $3,000 to $5,000 retainer a month. And I was suddenly at that age where a lot of my friends were starting up their own businesses, or I guess the circles I was moving in, I was meeting a lot of creative entrepreneurs who had brilliant businesses, brilliant stories, but they couldn't afford that. So I just thought, I've got to find a way of doing that. But also, I think I'd worked in industry for a really long time, so I'd really cut my teeth. I'd done the dog's body work. I'd started to earn a really good salary, but I was just sort of watching Mr. Porter deliveries going to my CEO, or another piece of fancy artwork going in the London HQ office, and just thinking and knowing kind of what juniors are paid in PR and interns working for free. And I just thought, I don't really care about e-cigarettes or alcohol or these businesses, these big global corporates. I just didn't care about them. And my sort of specialism was handling difficult clients. So I essentially was just working with really difficult clients on stuff I didn't really care about, making somebody richer, and just thought, I think there's got to be more to life than this. So I'm not a natural entrepreneur. And actually now I kind of, I try and sort of flip the whole entrepreneurship on its head a bit, because I think sometimes, particularly now in places like Clubhouse, entrepreneurship is all about making 6 figures, 7 figures, getting acquisitions and mergers and buying out and sell. And I think actually for me, I'm a creative entrepreneur, and actually I'm very entrepreneurial, but I'm not a millionaire, and I'm not trying to build my business to sell it. But I still think I'm very entrepreneurial, and I do things in a very different way.
And a big question I always ask people about being an entrepreneur. Would you say lifestyle entrepreneur? Lifestyle's
I think the problem with the word lifestyle entrepreneur is so many people, almost that in itself as a sentence needs to be PR'd, because people are really snobby about it.
Yeah. I'm just thinking out loud there when I said lifestyle. It's just grabbing for the first terminology. We don't have to put labels on things, but if you're having fun and you're making enough money to live the life you want to live, and you're feeling, I look for the altruistic feedback loop. So am I getting that feedback loop from the work that I'm doing that's making me feel good? Then happy days. Then I can continue doing it. I'm in flow all day long, and it looks like you're having a lot of fun. Guys, if you're listening to this, go and check out Lucy's Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. She is having more fun than anybody else out on the internet.
But I think we all take life a bit too seriously, and actually we should all be having a bit more fun. And I kind of think, well, if anybody thinks that that's unprofessional or it's not the right fit for them, that's cool. There's plenty of people that do want to work with me, so I'm fine if I'm not the right fit for them.
Yeah. It's nice saying goodbye to people who say, well, that's not professional. It's like, okay. See you later. Here's a professional person you can go and work with. We're having fun whilst being creative.
Yeah, I think every business owner should have fun though. Life's too short. Pandemic's definitely taught us that. You do not know what's around the corner. And actually for me, I kind of use my social media channels as that. It's almost my drag queen alter ego, where I get to be really fun and have a really fun time, and kind of be all these sort of things that I wanted to be. I think it's not in this interview series, but somebody else was like, what would you want to be if you weren't in PR? And I was like, a backing dancer. So now I get to live my backing dancer dreams. I'm a terrible dancer.
You
love
must
it.
be so happy TikTok's coming around.
Do you know, I can't do TikTok as well as Instagram Reels. It's just there's only so much brain capacity for me. But yeah, I was really happy. I love a dance challenge.
Lucy, I've got a boring question that I've written down here that I want to ask you, though. Is that okay? Okay. So when you first started the Wern...
The Wern.
I'm Werning it.
You're Werning it, yeah.
The Wern?
Funny.
Oh, the Wern. How did you get your first customer?
I had my first customer before I quit my job. It was a founder of a street food festival who wanted me to come on board to be the kind of comms manager of a project. And then through that, and I basically at one point, there was this sort of strip from Shoreditch to Dalston, basically going down the Hackney Road as well, where I had all these different businesses that were to do with like food and drink and lifestyle. And it was just word of mouth. And then I think in the first month, actually fully on my own, I think I did something like £300. And by the second month, I'd crossed the 5 figures and I had to get an assistant in to help manage the workload. So it spiraled super quickly.
That's awesome. So someone that you already knew that you were thinking about starting on your own or wanted to engage you on your own? He
approached me and said, would you consider supporting with PR? And I knew the beauty of being a kind of a PR agency born and bred person is, if worst comes to the worst, I can get another job at an agency, I can freelance for an agency, or I can freelance for my own clients. So I had 3 backup plans, and I also had 3 months of savings in the bank. I was single then, single without children, so the risk was less.
You had a better risk appetite.
Yes, and my mortgage at that point was only £700 a month, which in London is a ridiculously low amount. So,
wow, we shouldn't share finances now. It's far too depressing.
Not now.
So, can you tell me a little bit more about Hype Yourself?
Yeah, so it started off as a book, which is a no-nonsense DIY PR toolkit for small businesses. It became a bestseller in its category in Amazon, not because I put it on a cheeky little Kindle deal and pushed it. It actually made it in paperback on its own. It was shortlisted for the Business Book Awards this year. Didn't actually win anything, which I actually cried about, which was really sad. But I did cry, yeah. I was really gutted. Oh, what a loser. I just was...
You need a PR agency to help you win those awards, don't you?
No, you don't. Because you don't. I think, do you know what? I don't even know why I got so... I think I just... You know what? I'm with a very small publisher. And so when you do that, you actually do a lot of the legwork on your own. So a lot of the people who are with bigger publishers, they get more opportunities for sales and marketing. And I think I just kind of wanted to be the underdog. And the people who did get through were with big publishers. And it was all about the quality and the print of the book, which is just not something that's accessible to me. Anyway, and then basically off the back of the book, I sort of had these 2 different audiences coming to me. So I'd have people who bought the book and wanted to work with me, but didn't have a huge amount of budget. Or I had these big kind of corporate clients, and I just couldn't find a way to have the same service offering that fitted both. So that's why the business then split out into 2. So the Wern, my original business, is the consultancy, where I kind of take on maybe 3 or 4 projects. I don't do retainers anymore because for a multitude of reasons. 1, I don't think it's really good value for the client. 2, my second child was born with cardiac issues. So he had 4 rounds of open heart surgery in his first 7 months of his life, and he will need more. So at any point, I always get a few months run up. So I always need kind of, and basically I'm always like in 3rd or 4th gear. I need to have some gas left in the tank for his next round of surgery. And it also means that I can, when I'm working on projects, the time's more manageable, so I can then allocate this time to do the kind of DIY and do it with you packages that I'm working on and Hype Yourself. So at the moment, it's a really evolving project. We've just applied for a government grant, so we'll see if we get it or not, a creative entrepreneur grant, to see if we can help bring in some outside resource, because we're kind of trying to build it whilst running the consultancy side. But yeah, it's really exciting. And all the while we're sort of telling behind the scenes, building momentum, sharing it with our audience. So I always think people are in such a rush to launch, but actually that building that audience and sharing what you're doing and the mistakes you've learned and everything that you do on your journey, you can still be building that audience there. So as soon as you are ready to sell, they're all there, hyped and ready for you.
I'm thinking about people that are listening to this now that might be the ideal candidate to buy Hype the book, or to start thinking about PR in a different way. What do you think stops people doing it, or what's the kind of self-talk that would make someone an ideal business or entrepreneur to start thinking like this?
The thing that stops them, I know, is confidence, time, and not knowing what to say. I know because I use this tool called Mentimeter, where you have a word cloud function. I've had like over 200 people answer it. So I've got this beautiful word cloud of all of the things that stops them doing it. The thing that I think makes people want to start sometimes is actually for the wrong reasons. It's either because they're desperate for sales and they think it's going to solve all their problems, or it can be because of their ego, that they think, I want to be in Forbes, and they think that's going to solve all of their problems. The real reason that you should do PR or branding really is because when you look at your business objectives, you know that you've got a certain goal. So maybe it's to drive sales, maybe it's to attract talent, maybe it's to get investment. And you need to know what your brand strategy and your story is in order to hit those business objectives. And the tactics that you use should be tailored towards who your target audience is and where it is that they're playing. So obviously, if it's the investment piece, you don't necessarily want to be wanging on Instagram all day long, which is why I can, because I have no interest in investment.
Wanging is an odd verb that you've used there.
And you enjoyed it.
Thank you for sharing that. I look forward to reading the transcript and seeing what Otter thinks of wanging. Lucy, thank you. Are you ready for some quick fire questions?
We'll try our best.
Okay. What's your app that you use every day? App or SaaS product? It's
slightly cheating. It's called Flow State, and it's a podcast by Bobby Light. You can get it on Spotify, but you have to have the Spotify app, and it's a 25-minute Pomodoro technique. So it's deep electronic instrumental music, and then he stops you after 5 minutes, and he either reads from an influential business book, or he tells you something inspirational, or he plays like binaural sounds to help just bring you down and relax and think about what you've just done and what you'd like to do next before you move on to the next 25 minutes. And it's how I get all my writing done.
Wow, what a recommendation. That is curveball, huge curveball. Fantastic. Bobby Light.
Yeah, it's but Light, Lyte. Hold on. Flow State. Yeah, cool. I said Flow State, didn't I?
Yeah. I love the Pomodoro technique. I think it is so useful. I wish they taught it at school.
It's so good.
And when people first start their jobs, it's a cheat code. Like life hack,
He's actually a coder.
Just do Pomodoro
so he's like a real geek. I think he's actually a coder and a DJ. So he puts these playlists together that help him do his coding work. So good.
Wow, that's fantastic. I will link to that, and I will also use that as well, Lucy. Thanks for the recommendation. What's your most recommended book, apart from the obvious one?
I wanted to say Hype Yourself, because that's my original baby.
Oh, you can say it. Go for it.
Actually, I'm going to say my most recommended book this week is Brand Yourself, which is available for pre-sale. It comes out September the 7th. And pre-sales are so important because they send little signals to places like Amazon and book stockists that there might actually be customer demand. And so it makes them get stock in. It stops you selling out on launch day.
Is this yours as well?
Brand Yourself is my second book, which I've written with my partner, Adrienne Châtelet, and he's actually a French dyslexic. So we've got a whole bunch of other stories to talk about how we wrote a book together.
Wonderful.
The process wasn't, but thank you.
Well, no, but that's the story, isn't it? That's the authenticity and the realness.
We got engaged. We pitched the book idea the day after we got engaged, and since lockdown we've written it and got married. So we haven't killed each other.
Good. That would be a very bad end to the podcast as as stories go. And then I killed him. Great recommendation. I can link to that as well.
The link I put in your little pre-form earlier.
Don't tell everyone about the pre-form. This is supposed to be off the cuff. Who do you love watching on YouTube or listening to on your podcast apart from Bobby Light?
I really like a guy who's called Mike Winnett. he had a series called Entrepreneur, where he basically exposes kind of fraudulent sales tactics that some business coaches use. He's actually having a really hard time at the moment. He's been banned from LinkedIn. He's had his Instagram account hacked. He's had his YouTube pulled down because it turns out people don't like somebody taking the mickey out of them and exposing their bad business ways. So yeah, he's just got a really lovely sense of humor for me, and I like a working class guy that's done good, that's trying to do good. It makes me feel good about the world.
It's funny. Anytime I have an idea, so every 10 years or so, and I mention it to my business partner, he goes, "Oh yeah, that reminds me of what Mike Winnett says about that." And it's an ever so slight dig at my, at maybe some ideas that I might have that might sound a bit cheesy, and I don't mean it in those kind of terms. But Mike Winnett's a great recommendation. So where can you actually?
He's around. He's on
on
YouTube.
YouTube.
I think he's actually gone back to his original name on LinkedIn. But I believe,
okay.
The Entrepreneur Bingo. Basically, just Google Entrepreneur Bingo. They're around. There's always somebody floating around. But just Google Mike Winnett. He actually does a really lovely video on how he became a Amazon #1 best-selling author by printing a book with no content inside, which just shows you how BS that Amazon bestseller status is.
That's a great recommendation. Thanks for that, Lucy. A lot of fun. Who's an up-and-comer that we should be keeping an eye on? I've said who's going to be a Huffington or a Musk or someone like that, but someone that we should be checking their trajectory and seeing where they might be headed.
There's a young chap I work with called Cameron Worth, who is the founder of Sharpened, which is either you'd call it like an IoT agency. Most people don't really know what that means. So essentially, he works in connected products, spaces, retail. He's about to launch a future of retail store in East London, so you can literally experience what the future of retail is going to look like, which is essentially, we've kind of all seen glimpses of it, of like what happens when you shine your phone on something, but the business has literally sort of doubled in lockdown because suddenly advertising agencies and media agencies can't connect with consumers anymore because they're not out and about, whereas if your products in the home are connected, so I'm not talking about Alexa so much, but maybe your bottle of Malibu, for example, or your soap, and it can tell us so much information. Us as a consumer can get so much of a different experience through QR codes. And obviously, because of the pandemic, we're all so into using QR codes now in a way that we weren't before. But he's just got a really brilliant brain. He talks about tech in a way that I understand, and I am very much a consumer fluff person. So if I can understand it, I know he's going to be able to communicate that with the world.
Wonderful. And as you say, it's something that's really on the up and coming end of things. Yeah. Malibu. So like when I'm near the bottom of my bottle of Malibu, it'll say, JOD needs to buy more Malibu.
It might tell Alexa that for your shopping list.
Good.
As you run out when you've got your connected bar shelf. Or it might be that you're more just like scanning the bottle and it's telling you lots of opportunities or information for yourself. Like,
so it doesn't just have to be Malibu.
It could be anything.
Any of those products. Thanks for that, Lucy. Where's the best place for people to find you online and interact with you?
Easiest way is I'm Lucy Werner PR on everything. So Instagram's probably the main place that I play. As you can verify, I'm not great at DMs on LinkedIn, but I'm better at DMs on Instagram. So yeah, but I'm on Insta, Twitter, Pinterest, not TikTok. Although I am on TikTok, but I'm very dormant on TikTok.
I thought you were on TikTok.
No, I'm very dormant on TikTok.
There we have it. Lucy Werner, the founder of Hype Yourself, a DIY PR and branding hub. Lucy helps creative entrepreneurs and small businesses build powerful networks and raise their profiles. Lucy managed to get her first customer as a street food festival, the founder of a street food festival who she already knew through her extensive network, and then built her agency, the Wern. I don't know why I'm Germanising it. Sorry about that. Grew it through word of mouth, but started with 3 months savings. A favourite app is a absolute curveball. It's a Spotify playlist called Flow State from Bobby Light, which will help you with your productivity issues due to using the Pomodoro technique. I will definitely be giving that one a go. We should all be reading a book that doesn't quite exist yet, apart from in Lucy's laptop, but it's available for pre-sales. Be launching on the 7th of September. It's called Brand Yourself. Sounds like a great read. I'll be putting myself down on that, and I'll be sharing the link below so we can all help and support Lucy's launch. Lucy loves watching Mike Winnett, the Contrepreneur. Definitely check that out if you've got any awareness of entrepreneurialism and all the crazy stories, the crazy gurus out there that are trying to sell stuff to you non-stop. The Contrepreneur will bring you down to ground. And we should be keeping an eye on Cameron Worth, the founder of Sharpened, an IoT agency. Sounds really interesting what he's up to. We'll put a link to Cameron's stuff down below, and maybe we'll try and get him on the podcast at some point. It'll be a really interesting conversation there, I think. And check out Lucy on the Instagrams. We'll put in some links in the show notes. You can check out the book Hype Yourself by going to www.hypeyourself.com. That's hypeyourself.com, or Lucy's agency, thewern.com, thewern.com. Lucy, thank you for joining us today on the JOD Pod.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us today on the JOD Pod. To ensure that you don't miss out on any future interviews with such inspirational characters as Lucy, you need to play the YouTube game. Hit subscribe, hit the thumbie uppy button, like button, hit the bell so you get a notification every time we upload a video. And ask Lucy a question in the comments below about PR. I think she might be able to help you out. If you're a founder, if you're an entrepreneur, if you've been running a business for years and just want some ideas about your PR, ask a question down below and I will bully Lucy to come back and answer every single one of them. It'll help this video out, it'll help Lucy out, and that altruistic feedback loop, it'll make you feel so much better. Hopefully you've been inspired by Lucy's story today and you want to go and build something yourself and inspire the next generation. Thanks for joining us today on the JOD Pod. If you enjoyed this interview, why don't you check out some of these other interviews that we've done on the JOD Pod. More inspirational CEOs, coaches, entrepreneurs, founders, and authors. I'm sure there's something here that will inspire you to build something new.